Qasar, Peter, it's always great to have you on the road to autonomy. I was speaking with a banker the other day before your press release, and they said, "What do you think of applied intuition?" I said, "It's the most interesting company in autonomy." And lo and behold, you put out a press release. You raised $600 million at a $15 billion valuation. I guess I was proven right, but your investors already know that.
Yeah. The small. By the way, the small star. I'm sure the finance team would be saying it's 600 million in primary and a tender. So it's a there's this, the bankers will appreciate that nuance. Maybe everybody else won't. But no, thank you for having us on again. And you know now we can, with that type of introduction, we can only disappoint the audience. So you should have you should have said, this is a company I'm not sure if they're going to do well, and then the audience is like, wow, I'm pleasantly surprised they're still alive. But yes, thank you. Thanks for having us on, and thanks for the kind words.
You're very welcome. You're doing a lot more than well. You're doing great. How's that? You're making autonomy great again, if you want to say that phrase.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
I would just add, it's all honestly, it's about the customers, and I think we've our customers are happy with us, and I think that's the most important thing.
100%. 100%.
It's a validation. So you raise that capital. What's next for Applied Intuition? Where are you going?
Yeah, I mean, so for as a way of introduction for the people who don't know the company, maybe I'll give a little two cents there, and then it'll become a bit more clear. So, Applied Intuition, $15 billion company that focuses on vehicle intelligence. Vehicle intelligence is obviously autonomy, but it's also a bit more than that. We originally started as just a engineering tooling company. We would build the tools that you would use to develop, test, and deploy autonomous systems. Then we expanded that to all types of software on vehicles. And we're using the word vehicles and not cars, though we both, Peter and I, come from Detroit. And we're both car guys in our truest sense. We like, I mean, just earlier today, I was in a customer, with a CTO of a top, a 3 manufacturer. And we probably spent 20 minutes talking about cars. And I said, oh, we gotta talk business because, and sometimes we forget that we love the car business. We love the products itself, but that's where we started, and we expanded to all these different vehicle types. So we do, defense work. So we're a dual use company. We do construction and mining. We do trucking, and so vehicles broadly, and we provide the intelligence. And then we got into autonomy directly as well. So we started building autonomous systems. So that's the company for anyone who doesn't know. And in terms of what where we want to go and kind of what the next steps for the company is, we want to do more of what we've already been doing, which is supporting our customers globally. As we play in every region except China, so all of those offices and helping them grow all of our product lines. So supporting our customers, growing our products, and of course, just starting to invest in more strategic things. So when Grayson, when you say to some bankers, it's an interesting company, we still have continued to have interesting things we're doing rather than just we're not like the high school quarterback who just who still talks in their 30s about that game against Sterling Heights High School or something like that. So we're using the money to invest in the future, which is specifically products which are unannounced. And I don't know, Peter, what your perspective is.
Yeah, I mean, we really think at least 5 years out, and so our strategy really goes into a lot of stuff that again, these are bets that we're making today that we think will play out in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. By the way, just for the audience who's watching this, not listening to it, my chair is higher, but Peter's taller than me. So this is one of the few experiences I feel like, what would it be like to be taller than Peter? Wow, it's kind of nice actually. That's how serious this company is. That's what's top of mind right now.
You have to have fun. You left out the most important thing in all of that, your acquisition of Episci, where you're doing autonomous planes now. Peter came on a while back and talked about that. So it is C next. Are you going to go into maritime as well?
So Episci actually has production contracts in maritime autonomy already. So that's something that they're actually already quite deep in. But yeah, between aerial autonomy, maritime autonomy, and collaborative autonomy, the Episci team is really busy, and we're making sure that they stay that way. And tons of exciting stuff. I mean, I think the importance of collaborative autonomy is just growing, and so this is the ability for different autonomous systems to act together to achieve some common goal. And so, of course, in the defense space, there's sort of obvious uses of that, but in the commercial space, there's also some really interesting use cases when you talk about, for example, mining and different use cases in the commercial sector. And so we're really we're highly supportive of this trend, and we're working on a lot of interesting things in the collaborative autonomy domains.
Yeah, I think one of the unique things about Applied is, sometimes companies are robotaxi companies, or they're an ADAS company, or they're a construction or mining company. I think our kind of multi-domain strategy, I think, is very unique and interesting. It allows us, as we learn things from one domain, to apply it to another domain. And it's not quite obvious that that's an advantage, but it really is. I mean, even from all the way to subsidizing costs on tooling, right? When we build a tool for our customers, or we build a tool for our own use, we can use it in lots of different ways, which makes it ultimately the entire autonomy build for that individual vertical cheaper. So yeah, I think the variegated domains of autonomy, I think, is like a real strength of the company. It's also just really interesting to work on, like drones and fighter jets, along with trucks. And
I would just add on to that. I mean, it's been proven out by the enormous graveyard of companies that exist in autonomy that building autonomy is extremely difficult and extremely expensive. And so again, core to our strategy has been through this multi-domain strategy, we're able to take those investments and then just spread them out across more things.
You made great acquisitions. You bought the Embark stack on autonomous trucking, and then lo and behold, about a year later, you announced a partnership with Isuzu. Is that a similar track that we're going to see to evolve as Applied grows?
I think I think sometimes a mistake that companies make in quote unquote strategy development is they come up with a strategy, and then it's kind of unchanging to the reality that's around them. And I think we've taken kind of a different approach, which is, have a general strategy, but be opportunistic when certain opportunities exist. I mean, if you asked us, 6 months before the Embark acquisition, if we were ever going to get into L4 trucking, the answer would have been like, probably not. But then that opportunity emerged, and we took it. So part of the difficulty in answering where is the company going in the future is you also don't know what opportunities are going to emerge in front of you. And so, but yeah, I think it's the acquisitions, both of them, Epicai and Embark, are good examples of where we've gotten into a domain and then started doing quite well through our execution prowess in those domains.
But I'll just add as well, I mean, part of the way that Qasar and I think about our strategy is we always want to position the company close enough to those opportunities that we think might exist, so that when they come along, we're in a good position to actually capture them.
Well, one more thing, Grayson, is I think to double click on Peter's point about a graveyard of autonomy companies, I think way too often, especially, we're both engineers, and most of the ecosystem is very technical. You really can't be successful in a technical domain without being technical yourself. Is the opposite is also true, though, that a lot of times companies just don't think about the commercial aspect of the business. They don't think about, things like costs, like how much are we, how much data are we collecting, and how much does that cost? How much are we paying employees, and how much are we paying for offices? And all that stuff adds up over time. And then they find themselves on this treadmill of having to raise money. And that becomes that's really a risky position to be in. So for young founders out there who are listening, who are starting in the ecosystem, one of the lessons you can learn from us is just being disciplined actually has huge downstream benefits.
It does. If you look in business history, I think one of the most well-managed companies in history, extremely frugal. Warren Buffett has been on the record many times calling it the best managed company I ever seen, was ABC Capital Cities. Extremely frugal, took all the capital, put it back into the business. And the gentleman, if you use it today's terms, worth billions, and he's using a used card table that he bought at a flea market for $10. He said, why? What do I need? I don't care. I'm going to put it back into the business. And a lot of these startups, they get drunk on venture capital. Let's call a spade. But you made a very strategic acquisition. You got a really good stack. And then, Peter, I'm going to use the term, you supercharged it, sir. You took it to the next level. You get a deal with Isuzu. Do you collectively view the L4 autonomous trucking market as a growth market for Applied?
I think it's a growth market, period. I think I wouldn't even say it's for Applied. I think all the players who play in it have a great opportunity in front of them. It's interesting. Sometimes folks ask us, like, well, what do you think about, quote unquote competitors that are out there? I think that's a real old industry thinking, when a market is completely saturated and it's everyone's eking out 5 to 8% margins. We're in businesses that have huge amounts of growth in front of us. So, we think it's a growth market for us. We think it's a growth market for other folks, and we think it's I think net benefit to humanity is pretty significant. It's driving trucks is a dangerous job. It's not a job that's awfully liked, even by the folks who do it. And so, if we can, make that better, that's fantastic.
And we say all the time that not even 1% of autonomy is unlocked yet. And I think in trucking, it's probably not even 0.01% if you look at the overall volume of shipments that are being made. And so I think it's a growth opportunity for everyone. And I think it's a huge opportunity for us and then every other player in the space.
And as other players are successful, people ask us this question about a company that clearly is not a competitor of ours would be Waymo. And they'll say, well, is it good or bad that Waymo is really expanding? It's fantastic. It is absolutely positive for everybody. It's positive for us. It's positive for Tesla, it's positive for Aurora, it's positive for Gatik, it's positive for Kodiak, it's positive for every company, because it shows the general public that this stuff is real.
And it's not a zero-sum game.
It's not a zero-sum game. And so I think we hold those kind of two truths to be the kind of self-evident, which is, one is it's not a zero-sum game, and two is if anybody succeeds, it actually helps us. Because it's not a zero-sum game.
The greatest thing that Waymo's doing for the entire industry is building public trust. Your grandma goes in it, your kids go in it, wow, this was great. And then they use it in multiple cities, and it just keeps building trust. So everybody wants Waymo to succeed and keep scaling. And Peter, I want to stay on the L4 here, because you put out a really great video. You did a 10-day challenge for the Department of Defense. You had the drone, you had the autonomous vehicle. Could we see eventually your L4 stack go into off-road? Is that something Department of Defense has been very public about for years, almost decades now, that they have ambitions in that?
Yes. So just some terminology that I first want to clarify. So level 4 typically refers to when you have a vehicle that's operating in a geo-fenced area. And so, for example, the Waymo Robotaxi in San Francisco, currently it's geo-fenced to roughly the city boundaries of San Francisco. And that's level 4 technology. Level 5 is when a vehicle can effectively go anywhere that human can go. And so when you start talking about let's say the Army use cases and what was more relevant in that particular opportunity, it is a little bit closer to level 5, which is the vehicle has to be able to go anywhere, right? Like as in, it needs to drive on a road sometimes. Sometimes it needs to drive in a field. Sometimes it needs to drive through the woods or even more exotic environments. And so, we have technology in this space already, and that was sort of what we were demonstrating with the Army. Right, we literally put some of our autonomy technology onto an Army ISV, an infantry squad vehicle, and then it was used in a series of tests with soldiers in the Army, where they actually had it do all kinds of interesting things and on roads and on fields. And so that was a super interesting opportunity. So we're super excited to be in that domain. And I think the opportunity in ground defense is also it's all ahead of us. Like there's virtually no business in that today, but I think 5-10 years, I think that's a real opportunity.
Yeah, that project is such an interesting, let's say, case study in the sense of we can get technology onto a legacy platform really, really quickly. And I think that's super inspiring if you're a customer, because all customers tend to hear is everything's going to take 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. Who knows what's going to happen? And then especially with international competition, who supposedly moves very, very fast, there's always this confusion, why can they move fast and we can't move fast? And I think we can prove that we can also move really, really fast and really cost efficiently. And I think our experience, not only in autonomy, but in the operating system, as part of the business we haven't talked about, operating system and tooling, I think all that comes together to provide a really compelling package for our customers, including the Army. So I think, I think you'll see more of that in the future.
Peter, from a technical standpoint, so obviously you have the software. So how do you harden the software? But then from a sensor deployment, you have water, you have mud, you have bad guys shooting things. Do you have to redesign the sensors or build special housing for the type of environment that you're operating in?
The short answer is yes. It's pretty much exactly what you just described. There's a whole element to the ruggedization of components, and also just being very careful in terms of which components do you choose, because they need to be very robust to the elements. And it's exactly like you described. I mean, the vibrations in off-road environments are much higher than in, let's say, urban autonomy, like what, let's say, Waymo would deal with. You also have you have rain, you have high humidity. These vehicles oftentimes even have to drive through water and mud, and so just the level of robustness is much higher than what you'd expect. But really, it just comes down to engineering, and frankly, I think that kind of stuff is probably easier than the software problems. And I don't mean to lessen the difficulty there. It's hard too, but I think the software is the hardest part. And then the making hardware robust is a fairly well understood field.
That's outside the vehicle. Gosh, let's go inside the vehicle for a moment. You recently announced a strategic partnership or collaboration with OpenAI to put ChatGPT inside of vehicles. Please tell me this is not the original version that was rolled out that was horrendous. Please tell me this is the applied version that Peter and the team made work and function properly.
Yeah. So thanks for plugging our OpenAI collaboration. I mean, for the folks who don't know my background, I was at Y Combinator before, and YC Research is where OpenAI ultimately, and Sam Altman was the president of YC, and I was the COO. So I've seen that organization from its, before it was called OpenAI. And so obviously we're close to the company for the historic reasons that Sam and I work together, but also because there's some interesting collaboration opportunities. And so just stepping back, if you're OpenAI, you get inbounds from vehicle manufacturers and other companies all the time, and they're saying, "Oh, we'd love to do something," but you maybe you don't have the bandwidth, or you're predominantly a consumer company. We, on the other hand, are extremely deep, like both in terms of strategic relationships with the global OEMs, but also in a technical sense. Our operating systems, works all the way down to kind of bootloader levels, right? And so from that, we really understand the stack inside, for the lack of a better word, inside of a vehicle. So we can really understand, okay, if you have this power of these large language models, how can you really get the most out of them in this particular domain? So the collaboration makes sense from that perspective. It's like it really is two companies coming together and maximizing what they can, what their expertise is. Without going into exactly what we're going to do, because we want to announce that in the future, we can say engineers are working together in a very, very deep manner, and we want to ultimately bring experiences that are not seen anywhere on the globe through that type of collaboration. So and then also getting access to early technology. We don't want to be working on this stuff from that's generally available for API, from 2 years ago. So that also helps us through this work closer on kind of future stuff. So we're super excited about it. I think you're going to see some really interesting stuff. I don't think you need to be like, a PhD AI researcher to understand, hey, if you brought some intelligence from just an LLM perspective beyond anything else, you can make some really interesting in-car and in-cabin experiences. You're seeing the early versions of that, by the way. If you go to China, you can see OEMs who have integrated DeepSeek into cabins, and there are kind of some interesting use cases. But we think we can go even further than that. Just turning on and off your music is really interesting. But we think we can get to the next level of that. So we're going to be working on that. TBD on on when and what will be interesting to announce. But you'll hear about it, I'm sure.
We'll have you back to chat about it. I had a long talk with a gentleman this morning about payment rails, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But so, Peter, are we going to see this integration at the vehicle OS level, at your software level? Is that where this is going to go?
In terms of the AI integrations, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, that's probably the primary thing that actually makes it such that we can do interesting, differentiated things. Today, anybody can put their phone in their car, and you can have let's say a nice chat experience with your phone. But where it becomes,
going through the speakers and the microphones, but that's not.
Yeah, but where it becomes really interesting actually is where this is actually integrated deep into the vehicle, and that's where actually our vehicle OS is really at the core of the technical experience that you get. And the early feedback that we've gotten from the things that we've shown to customers already is like the industry really wants this, and I think that it's going to be it's going to really be an interesting topic in the industry when we show what we have.
Yeah, and that's on the, that's from, let's say, the model to the car side. On the other side, from the model to the brain of the human brain, maybe that'll be something a long-term applied intuition goal would be to integrate you completely with a car, and then you're just one giant product.
You have some of the world's best engineers at Applied. When do you partner and build out payment rails to connect into this?
Yeah, I think there are many obvious and interesting use cases there when you can purchase things. Let's just say that has dawned upon us a long while ago, and if you ever came and saw some demos inside the company, you would say that we're already well aware of that. I think that's just a natural evolution of making the vehicle much more intelligent, and I think that's the whole theme of the company. It's make the vehicle the next platform, the next intelligence platform, and I think we're well on the way to doing that. It seems really obvious or interesting in the consumer perspective, but I think it's even more interesting in the commercial perspective. If you have a small fleet of trucks, if you have a small fleet of construction vehicles or mining vehicles, and we think that could be really interesting. It's still quite nascent. I think with all industries and startups in general, the real heart, and this is from my Y Combinator experience, the real heart of success and failure is timing. If you build a technology too early, the market is not there to consume it. If you build it too late, there's a bunch of players who are already now established themselves. So we're constantly talking about, should we get in this business or not, based on the timing. And so I think that's the big question: is when will the end market be ready to consume and purchase things through this new platform?
It's true that we think so. You publicly stated your company's 18 of the 20 largest automakers are Applied Intuition customers. So the first thing that goes through my head is, okay, when are you going to roll out the Applied Passport? So if I'm in vehicle A, I'm in vehicle B, I'm in Robotaxi C or D, I take my Applied Passport and I have that whole experience where I don't have to reprogram it every time. When's that coming?
That's a great idea, Grayson.
So I would say
are you looking for a new job as a product manager?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, we would love to do that. I think it does come down a bit to honestly what our customers want, and I think for their own strategy reasons, they may or may not want that kind of technology in the product. But yeah, as a tech company, we would love to build that. I just don't know if the market actually demands that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as Peter has shown in this conversation and in generally, like, we very much are a customer-led company, and we want to be where we're accelerating our customers' abilities to succeed and win in their market, rather than trying to accelerate, us as a standalone company. Fundamentally, we're a B2B company.
You are a B2B company. This is going back. I did a thing at MIT on this years ago, and United started the Netflix commercialize. It was start, stop, play. So if you start watching a movie and then you go on your iPad, you continue, and you go in your car, you continue. So you could essentially do that under one of your 18 customers then, and they could have their own passport. Some of your customers have openly spoken about this. I won't name names here, but some have openly spoke about it. You could power that for them.
Yep, exactly. As a technology provider, absolutely. And I think it's like, what areas that we like to play are, frankly, heavy lifting, where it's for the companies maybe undifferentiated. And so, like, you take, we have public relationships with Porsche and a bunch of companies, but why is the 911 the best car arguably ever made? Ford Mustang Corvette fans are gonna chafe a little bit about that comment. Hey, listen, I grew up in Michigan. I would say the Corvette, but we won't get in that debate. But why is that car it's because it's not because of an electronic passport. It's not because of even maybe the electronic spirit. It's that product and that brand are very, very unique. So I think you ask that question to each customer, which is the company, and each consumer, and you're going to get slightly different answers. But there are, especially when you go to high volume brands, the GMs, the Toyotas, that passport suddenly becomes really interesting, because there's a real viability that the family owns 3 cars and they're all from the same brand, and you want that interoperability. Rarely are you going to get a family with 3 911s or 3 3 Corvettes, and so that passport product might break down. But I think what you're talking about is absolutely the future of the business, which is, it feels much more like another platform, like your phone or your computer in your car. And these should be really seamlessly working together. And that's possible even without an official, let's say, branded OEM specific passport.
Is the goal of Applied Intuition to become the Microsoft Windows of autonomy?
I think Microsoft Windows of autonomy. That's a real convoluted. I'm trying to think through.
There's a lot of positives.
There's a lot of positive negatives into that. Like
not a Windows.
I only look at positives.
Yeah,
only positives here.
Yeah, not a Windows Vista for sure, or even 3.1. Maybe the golden age was 95. But then I think
98, 95 was good.
98. Yeah. But you know what happened at that time too is I see Bill Gates at the hearings in front of the the Senate. So I think I think the best companies ultimately long term, like what is the Microsoft of? Well, there wasn't really a Microsoft before then. They're actually the first true giant software company. Every company before then was really doing hardware, which is unbelievable when you think about the concept that before Microsoft there were not software companies. That is unbelievable. So I think for Applied, there's a similar version that we're the category we're building and beating and winning in is vehicle intelligence. And so I think one day there'll be a plethora of companies that are working in this, and folks hopefully will say, not that Applied is the Microsoft of cars, but they really say, oh, they're like this vehicle intelligence provider, and it's our own thing. Where the Microsoft analogy breaks down, yes, I look like Satya and Peter looks like Bill Gates, but we're beyond that reality. Beyond that reality, it's we work on, I would say, quite complex learned software. Right, our AI is the heart of the company. For Microsoft, AI is something that they've adopted and they do very, very well at. But they're fundamentally a operating systems company that started for PCs, and so we're just not that. So I think that's where some of the analogy kind of breaks down.
I'd say, from my perspective, something that we find very respectable and admirable about Microsoft is that Microsoft has made it through all of these huge tectonic shifts in technology and ultimately come out on top. And for Applied, we're 8 years into this business, and we've seen, like I said, the graveyard of companies in this space. And I think we've been very careful about trying to be on top of these shifts in technology that have occurred during those 8 years. And so I think there's a lot of lessons that Microsoft has as a good example for how to avoid death by industry shifts.
Yeah, you have at least two big. This is kind of crazy. Is you've had at least two big revolutions that have happened in Applied's history. One is just the recognition that self-driving is going to happen, and second is the transformer boom. And those have massive. One is commercial and one is technical. Massive impacts. And I think for us as a company, what we can really learn from Microsoft, we learned. So I thought when you said, Grayson, you asked Peter that question, what do you most admire? Peter was going to say their multi-trillion-dollar market cap, but one of the things you can admire is absolutely their flexibility, and I think we want to emulate that as much as we can. And so far so good, but you never know what the future holds and what the next boom is going to be, and how do we sustain ourselves in that.
You made a lot of the right decisions they didn't make. They missed the phone, and that hurt them until Satya came on and got the cloud.
Oh, they tried.
They tried. Peter was actually, you were an intern?
I was an intern on Windows Phone.
Yeah. Don't say that too loud, Grayson. Peter winces when you.
Well, actually, a fun quip from that was I think this is widely reported, but there was an iPhone funeral that they held.
Yeah, I saw that. I remember seeing that.
at the launch of I think it was Windows Phone 7, and
did not age well.
That did not age well.
I recently saw a Steve Ballmer interview, and he's like an elder statesman now, like Bill Gates is, and I was like downright impressed. But Ballmer got a lot of criticisms in that era. Whether it's a phone miss or there's some other things. I think, but I think there's listen. If we end up on the other side, in 30 years from now, and we're one of the 5 biggest companies in the history of humanity. You can say, hey, didn't those guys missed construction and mining or something, whatever the big thing that we might have missed. So I think as leaders of the company, it's making sure we don't make the big mistakes. I think we're making small mistakes every single day. I'm positive. That's just the nature of the business. But you got to get the big things right again and again. And I think so far we have. So yeah, and learning from folks like Microsoft.
You just have to keep learning, and I don't know. I like to study history, and you just have to keep learning. I want to get into this for a second because my wife and I were talking about this today. Vehicle intelligence. How is it if you buy $170,000 vehicle, it's dumb, but yet you can buy a 30,000, 33,000, depending on what state you live in, Tesla Model 3 that's smart? We're talking $130,000, $140,000 swing. How we can't wrap our heads around it. We had a whole conversation about it today.
So I've absolutely, this is not somebody else, myself directly had conversations with very premium vehicle manufacturers, and they say, well, our value is the brand, it's the experience. And absolutely, like, who am I to say to correct them when they run very successful, very long-term brands? I think companies like Porsche are smart on that. They recognize, hey, even if the driving experience is key, you still want to have the best technology in the business. But I think that just comes down to individual company strategies. My more slightly cynical view of that is, it's just not the area of expertise for the company, and to dive into a brand new area of expertise takes a lot of resources and a retooling of the company leadership or engineering teams, and that just might not be a priority for the company that's doing extremely well selling their products. But yeah, there is shockingly not a correlation between MSRP and technical depth. But I think over the long horizon we're talking specifically the passenger car business here. Pass car is, I think consumers are going to catch up to that. Now, if you remember, if you look at the last big revolution that happens in automotive before the software SDV boom that's happening, was just the electronics. If you look at the cars of the 70s and 80s, they're almost all mechanical, not a little mechanical. They're all mechanical. And then you have the folks like Mercedes who take the bold decision, or BMW, a bold decision in the 80s to get into electronics. They get hammered for it because they're learning how to do quality in that ecosystem,
which is super tough,
which is super difficult, but they made it. They're still considered to be top OEMs. There are other rest in peace OEMs. The brands don't even exist anymore. They were either absorbed by larger OEMs in acquisitions, and then shut down, or just literally went bankrupt. And so I think people talk about automotive going through quote unquote a consolidation. Every industry on the planet is constantly consolidating. You show me an industry, even the large language model business with OpenAI buying somebody like a Windsurf, that's a consolidation. So there's new OEMs that have emerged just within the last few years. And it's not only in China, but it's in the US and it's in Europe, Polestar to Rivian to Lucid. These are not, so I think it's just a very dynamic industry. And I think what the string you're pulling on to us, people who are in the, let's say, more advanced technology conversations, you really love autonomy, et cetera. It seems so obvious that's the future. But if you live in Detroit, or if you live in Munich or Stuttgart, or you live in, that you're not living in the AI universe, and you're like, oh, this like ChatGPT thing's interesting, but it's not like going to change fundamentally the car.
But also for us, when we think about vehicle intelligence, I mean, this is a long-term strategy for us. And whether we're talking about low-cost or high-cost vehicles, like, our view is that it's inevitable that all vehicles will have this, and it's just a matter of timeline. And some brands are more tech-forward, some brands are more, let's say, luxury hardware features forward. But think about the 5-year, 10-year horizon, vehicle intelligence is going to be in everything.
Yeah. It's kind of like, so this is a true story. 98, I'm working, 99, I'm at General Motors. My car, I was driving a Pontiac Grand Prix, and my car had like a flat tire. Tow truck picks me up. This isn't for all the Michigan listeners. This is like in Warren. And he's driving me. And I remember him saying, this tow truck, an older gentleman, I'm riding with him, and he says, now this internet fad, this is a fad. We're never going to hear about this in 2 years. And I remember thinking very deeply, is he right? And it's like, no way, he can't be right. And I feel the same way about, AI broadly. For the audience, when we're saying vehicle intelligence, all we're really talking about is AI in cars. Mm-hmm. It's the AI version. It's a car version of AI. But You don't have to use ChatGPT for a long time to realize this is really helpful. It's really useful. Aside from the dogma of, is it going to change the world in fundamental ways and all of these things? It's hard to debate that it doesn't make you, it's not more convenient or makes you more productive. The same thing with vehicle intelligence. You want cars that are safer, that are more convenient, and ultimately make you more productive. And because that, people will purchase those features, and therefore they'll turn around and purchase cars that have those features.
Do you think it's a cultural disconnect? I asked that because I turned down the $170,000 car. I said, I don't want it because it's dumb. He said, what do you mean? The seats are better in this car. I said, I don't care about the seats. The seats aren't going to drive me. My Tookie's going to go fine. Is it just a cultural disconnect? And I ask that because if you look at Range Rover specifically, in the South Florida market, their market share now with the Range Rover HSE is getting eaten to by Grenadier, the UK startup. They undercut it, $77,000 fully loaded. Looks like the old school Defender that everybody wanted. They killed the R-Monk refitting business, the $250,000 car. That's gone by the wayside. Does something like that, where you're having a well-funded startup that's building the product that your customers always wanted, and then the tech people not buying it, do you think that force has changed towards this vehicle intelligence?
Yeah, I think what it is fun. What you just described, that specific interaction. People often ask about, what is product market fit, and it's a very ephemeral thing in the startup universe, or fundamentally, like, what is a company listening to a customer? This upstart is listening to the customer better. Tesla is listening to customer better because you as a customer are saying that the seat and the way it supports me, it's not a significant enough thing to make the purchasing decision. So if I look at the priority matrix of what am I going to do, why am I going to buy this product versus another product, software is near the top for almost all consumers. Well, do the manufacturers want to admit that is a very different question. And so what you're doing is you're shining a light on this reality, which is, by the way, most of the volume manufacturers are completely in your camp. None of the top 5 manufacturers globally are not pouring money into this because they know it, because they do their own marketing surveys and they realize, actually, if I put my car head to head against these other products, they don't care about the door closing sound or the cubic meters of a trunk space. It's important, but it's the 5th or 8th or 10th thing. And maybe for a mom, it's maybe a 3rd thing. But the ability to quickly connect your phone, or just to have good navigation, or to have a call that's just clear and crisp because I'm doing a phone call, those are higher on there. I really wonder, but not to get too philosophical here, but if you look at the big problems of the West. What are the big problems of the West? And people will illuminate all these individual points, but I think our biggest problem, honestly, is bureaucracy. Mm-hmm. And what is bureaucracy? You break down what is bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is the existing momentum of the processes that were needed to solve problems that might not exist anymore. And so the natural reaction for a large company, we know the JLR folks. I'm very sensitive of what I say, but if you talk to the JLR team, they're going to have their own reasons. But imagine if you remove that entire team or that entire company, and you said, but we're still going to build the same thing from scratch. They're going to come up with different processes, different ways. And it might come up that the ultimate conclusion is still the same Land Rover because that's the customer they want to serve. But that first principles thinking is actually a big issue that we have, with mature economies and mature companies. And so what you're seeing in the industry, broadly speaking, is this: how do you shuffle towards a new reality while still keeping in focus why your products are currently selling? Because for every person who wants the Model 3, there's another person who wants the 911, who believes that, the car, I don't care about the electronics at all. I just want the car to feel and drive in a specific way. Yeah, Bluetooth pairing is important, but it's like 5th on the list or 8th on the list. And so I think we as tech forward people, we certainly over index on that stuff. But even with that as a control, it's very hard to debate that the average consumer doesn't want sophisticated tech forward products. They're showing it through their wallets, and they're showing it through their time. You can see where people are spending their times.
The consumer just wants the vehicle to work, and they don't want it in the shop at the end of the day. They just want it to work. All the mechanical problems have been well documented throughout history, whether if you're on the Porsche 911 or you're on a different type of vehicle, they just want it to work. That's where the consumer's going. They're used to. They open their phone it just works. They ask ChatGPT something,
Yeah.
it just works.
So I started in the car business on the quality side and in manufacturing and quality. And there was a long period in the car business, specifically passenger car business, where quality was the dominant feature. But somewhere in the late 90s and early 2000s, you can look up JD Power or, initial quality surveys at the time, that the American car companies and the Japanese car companies, they're statistically insignificant. There used to be a period where the Japanese were just way better in quality in the 80s and 90s, early 90s, and then that changed. And then suddenly, like, quality stopped being a core reason why people buy or not buy a
But
vehicle.
interesting, now the quality problems are all on the software side.
Yeah. And so
like the hardware quality is pretty much
Exactly.
great everywhere. And
so
software's
if you, the one way to look at our industry is kind of like, what are the problems these companies are tackling? And right now, the problems the companies are tackling are software, and specifically what Peter said, software quality. And so you, as a technology provider, which is us, you want to be aligned with your customers' biggest problems. Now, what they do with that and how they market their products and, for their customers, they're going to have an infinite number of positions, and whether an upstart that does a retro product. I mean, one of the most interesting companies for me is the Porsche Singer. Such a fascinating company. The Resto Mod Shop down in LA. So interesting, right? Here's a company that takes old Porsches and sells them for a stupid amount of money by literally making them like a modern car. And I always think, why doesn't why doesn't Weissach just take the 964 and throw it right back into a factory? That doesn't sound like hotcakes. But if you talk to the Porsche folks, they're like, that's not where the company's looking forward. The company's not looking backwards, and it creates this great market opportunity for somebody like a Singer vehicle design.
Oh boy, we could have fun. I'm not
We could talk about that for hours.
Yes, that's a whole other conversation. I went and toured a bunch of those, and at the same place, it's actually a hidden garage on Rodeo. He had a bunch of the old Dinos and all these old cool things. Scott, if you're listening, thanks for the tour all those years ago. And then the coolest thing that he had, it was a defunct dictator from Africa that was overthrown. And Interpol has the vehicle, but he had to store, so he couldn't move it. He had one of the original no air conditioning gull-wing Mercedes with the checkered seats with the matching luggage. It's like, okay, this thing is... What dictator it is, I don't know. And the vehicle's probably still there today, and somebody's paying him rent to hold the asset. And you and I, all three of us know it's an appreciating asset.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you gentlemen, you're building vehicle intelligence. As you build the vehicle intelligence, there's something that's starting to bother me now. If you push out a software update, great. But then if something needs to get fixed, they call it a recall for software. How do you see, or are you recommending that language be changed?
So there's some nuance on that, and that's important to clarify also for the listeners. So there is a threshold where something is considered a software recall, and that is where it's actually a safety issue. And so I wouldn't actually debate not calling those recalls, because they can be serious. I mean, and I won't go through the list of all of the Tesla software recalls, but they've had a handful of them. And if you read the details of them, it gets serious stuff, like stuff that could result in real accidents. So I say the broad point is, at Applied, we take safety critical software development extremely seriously. And
it's in our first value.
Literally. And the testing and the infrastructure for the testing around that safety critical software is extremely, extremely important. And I do think if there is a safety critical software problem, I think it's actually appropriate to consider that like a recall level, because somebody could die, right? I mean, it's like it's that level of issue. Where it doesn't make sense to call it a recall is like, yeah, there's a bug in the HMI, and the radio button doesn't work correctly.
Your Taylor Swift song doesn't load up fast enough.
There really is a safety critical software and non-safety critical software. These are very different things, and the safety critical software you have to take very seriously.
I like that. So you divide it. You're like going on Caster's thing here. Oh, the payment rails didn't work. I couldn't buy Taylor Swift tickets. Oh shit! That's not a recall. That's a software.
It's not a recall.
Update. Yeah. Well, in some houses it might be, because the kid's going to go nuts against the parents, but that's a whole different ballgame.
One indication that you tend to be working on something that probably will be made is if you could see it in some sort of Hollywood dystopian movie, where somebody's like getting in a car and they're like buy me these tickets. And it's like, sorry, sir. And he hits the dashboard, says, don't be so mean to me. It's like, this car is so sensitive. By the way, as an aside, why are all of our future movies so dystopian about technology? You know, why like, it's fantastic. We have all this great technology. It makes us happier and healthier. I would much rather live today than, 100 years ago, where you wake up and you're like, oh, you know what? You had this health problem that you didn't know was happening, and you had like 2 days to live. So that's if any Hollywood people are listening, let's make a Knight Rider, but like in a really happy version.
The only problem is fear sells. Look at Black Mirror. That's in the ratings.
Absolutely, that's what it is. I think it's probably some human, some deep human, caveman, where that's what gets us to pay attention.
It gets us to pay attention. And this week caught my attention, Peter. Over in Paris, great city, by the way, Meta unveiled the V-JEPA 2 model, and maybe one sentence, half a sentence, that it can potentially drive a car. And then all suddenly that sent headlines flying. What's the real truth there?
So I'm familiar with this and some of the technology behind it. What I would say at a high level is there are many different research directions within autonomy, and almost an unlimited number of research directions, especially when you look at all the different research labs across the world and all the different ways that they're approaching the problem. There are many different ways that you can get, let's say, autonomy to a demo state. Actually getting it to a production state is still extremely difficult, no matter which set of techniques that you're using. Whether we're talking about Waymo's technology or a list of other startups that are working in this space, it's extremely difficult to get it to production state. So it's quite believable that, let's say, Meta could have a model that could drive a car, but it's certainly nowhere near production. And if they wanted to productionize it, I could give you the list of 100 reasons why that would be extremely difficult.
Yeah, let me use the let me use the inverse here. You could use like Replit and build, like somebody has built like a LinkedIn clone. That does not make it LinkedIn. It has the basic things of LinkedIn, like the ability to post and share a news article and have connections. But what LinkedIn is actually way deeper. It's not only is it just literally built out, it's a much deeper web application than what the demo would show, but it has a network. It has a brand. People, when I say LinkedIn, you already know what LinkedIn, what I'm talking about. You're not like wondering. And so, yeah, I'm always, let's say, it's one of these small kind of annoyances for me is when folks say things like this, because for the general public, they're extrapolating way further behind. And technologists, I think we all know, like, that's not real, right? It takes so much. It takes so much more. But as a toy thing, yeah, absolutely super interesting. And as a vehicle to explain Meta has a really advanced AI model, like in that way it works, but it's not actually going. You're not going to see like that actually be productionized into. I don't anticipate it, I would say.
Yeah, and then in autonomy, I think literally just part of being a tech company that's working on state-of-the-art autonomy, you're constantly pulling in the latest ideas from research and rethinking the way that you're approaching things. That's just core to the business, I think, for any player, and that's no different in this case.
And then I think for one promise we make to our customers is we're on top of all this stuff. So if of the 15 different announcements that are said like this, maybe one of them is actually going to be a big deal and a real thing. And we want to make sure we're not, you don't want to be dogmatic. You don't want to say, oh, every time, Meta or OpenAI or somebody makes a comment about cars, they don't know what they're talking about. That's not true. Sometimes they do know what they're talking about. And we have to make sure we're humble enough to, take that and double click into it. But in this case, I wouldn't extrapolate.
And just to also put some numbers on the scale of this, right? I mean, like CVPR was recent and just a few weeks ago, and that's
what's CVPR.
So it's like the biggest, most prestigious computer vision conference. And at that one conference, I mean, there were hundreds, maybe thousands of papers in this field that are published and all very relevant and a lot of really interesting stuff. And so I think it's just the scale of research and development going on in this field is huge.
Yeah, and I think for us, obviously, that's super important. I mean, we have our own research team that not only does research but also follows that.
The hype is building because Altman was on a podcast this week talking about OpenAI's potential again. So it's building this hype. Is all that hype? Do you think that helps to usher in this licensing model that Neuro's talking about, Wave's working on? Do you think that's going to, all this hype will usher in an autonomous driving stack licensing model?
Are you talking about Sam on his brother's podcast where
Yes.
he mentions cars a couple times? Yeah. I was also on that podcast, by the way, Grayson. So
Fancy.
you know, I noticed you didn't call out any of mine. No, I'm kidding. No, I watched it. I sent to the team. As we said, we have a collaboration with OpenAI. We know them well. It falls into what Peter said in the meta. I think still super early, to be determined if new research is going to yield let's say a better autonomy system. In terms of the question about Neuro and Wave, don't know those companies well enough where I can particularly comment on their strategies. But one thing I think is true is there's definitely going to be a lot of providers of that technology out in the market, and that is what that means in a Harvard MBA sense is downward pricing pressure. And so my fear is it takes you many billions to build something, and then people are paying you many hundreds of dollars. And it's like, well, again, that formula is really tough. And I think that's the big question. By the way, that question also exists for Waymo. That question exists for many companies which are operating in the red, which is monetization before commoditization. Are you going to have a window long enough where you can monetize this great technology that you built? I remember one of the formative experiences for me as a founder was in our YC batch when I was a founder, not when I was working at YC, before I was a YC founder. And my batch was the Pebble Watch. You guys remember that smartwatch?
I had one.
Pebble Watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Peter was a big fan of this product, and the punchline is great company, biggest Kickstarter in history. They knock it out, and then Apple launches their watch. And you just never hear about Pebble again. Everyone thinks Apple created the watch category, and it's like, no, actually Pebble did. And so again, monetization before commoditization. And so I think that would be the thing that I would wonder about, especially if commoditization comes from a new model architecture, or comes, whether it's OpenAI or Meta or whatever research will come out in CVPR next year. So those are the business sides. You have to both work on interesting technology, but you have to be right on the time. If you're too early, you're doomed, and if you're too late, you're doomed. So, but without saying anything particular about Neuro and Wave,
Yeah, but you forgot the most important part there. Applied.
We're the little startup that could, a couple of what's the Journey song? Couple of boys from East Detroit. so I mean, Peter literally was born in East Detroit. I'm originally Pakistani, but I grew up in the East Side, and so we'll see. What we're going to keep our heads down. I think my big fear. I said this to this company, and I'll say it again here, which is we can't become arrogant. The additional fundraising rounds or our continued success. Bill Gates. From the earlier in the callback from earlier podcast, this is a great line which says, "Success is a lousy teacher because it seduces smart people into thinking they can't fail." And so when you say, what about applied, my entire brain goes to all the problems we're constantly dealing with, and and like we got to put those out. And if we keep keep being paranoid, and we keep working hard, and we're disciplined, and we serve our customers, and we have a good culture, it'll all work out. It'll continue to work out, but because it's not like an end state, it'll continue to work out. If we don't, then we become one of those companies that had a good run, but maybe not so much anymore. So we're quite afraid of that.
And just underlying, our goal is always is that we just want our products in vehicle intelligence to be so good that our customers just want more and more from us. And as long as we can deliver on that and the strategy that we have for our products, I think our business will grow.
Yeah. Then we have jobs in places we like to work. We like, if you like the car business and you like software, we're a great company to do that in. And so selfishly, Peter and I want to continue to have this job. So it's our motivation to keep the company going in the right direction, because we love the product space.
Peter, every time you come on, you make a plug for hiring. Are you still hiring? You want to make that plug?
Still hiring, absolutely. And for the engineers who are listening, if you love AI and you're passionate about vehicles, and this could be any type, from ground to air and space, reach out. We're hiring.
I'll say this. I'm very bullish on Applied Intuition. I'm very public on how bullish I am on there. If you want to go build the future, go join Applied Intuition. Qasar and Peter are a great team to work for. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is Applied Intuition. Qasar and Peter, thank you so much as always for coming on the road to autonomy.
Always fun to talk to you, Grayson. Thank you.
Thank you, Grayson.